Well, I think it's the only way. I mean, the more I have worked in it, the more I'm convinced that is the only purpose of conservation. Because if you're conserving the past, if it doesn't have any meaning, if it doesn't have any use, if it doesn't have any function, why keep it anyway?
For the people.
Yes, and of course the people, when we talk about the people, there are many different kinds of people within the people, right? So it's not always a massive audience that you're talking about. There are different kinds of parts of that audience, and I wouldn't say just audience, participants, and people have different concerns. Different groups of people have different concerns, so we have to make sure we segment those concerns because we have so much heritage. Of course, we will have so many people who want to participate, to use the heritage for something. But the point is that if it's not being used, then that's the difference between heritage and trash. You can throw away trash, things that no longer has any use. Indeed, we can throw it away. But if something has use, then that's why we keep it. Now the real question is, what kind of use are we talking about? And this is where I would say the heritage profession as a whole has a crisis of imagination. Because the only thing that most people can think of to use heritage for is for tourism. In other words, to sell it. The only thing they can think of, they're into this economistic mindset that unless something can be commodified, it no longer has any value. If you talk about value, you're talking about commodity, and that means you'll have to buy and sell it. But of course, if we think a little bit deeper about things, we know that we value things not just because we can buy and sell them. As I like to tell people who don't believe me on this, I say, okay, do you have a child? They'll say, yes, I do. Okay. Why don't you sell it? If you think the only value something has, you should have sold your child. How foolish you are to invest in your child's food and clothing and education when you should have sold that child, and in fact you could have sold them to be a prostitute. You would have gotten a lot more money. Or, why don't you chop them up and sell their organs? And then they say, they get all shocked. And I say, but that's exactly, the point. Heritage is your child. It's something that you get from the past, and you have to nurture and take care of it. You chop it up, you sell its organs. It's like chopping up your heritage and turning it into a commodity. You prostitute it, you turn it into some kind of silly tourism product. That's prostituting your heritage. You don't take care of it, you leave it in neglect. What if you don't take care of your children? Let them go out on the street and beg. Is that what you do to your heritage, your ancient monuments, your traditional things? I say you have to use that analogy, and then you can understand what you should do and what you can do to use your heritage resources as something of value. Value why? Why? Because they have a future potential. And they have a potential because they are full of knowledge. The key thing about heritage is that it's a knowledge resource. Knowledge is encoded in heritage. We understand this very well when we say that knowledge is books, and books contain knowledge. And we know that knowledge is encoded in books. But knowledge is also encoded in songs, it's encoded in dances, it's encoded in buildings, it's encoded in textiles, it's encoded in many, 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 many ways. And encoded in different kinds of technological instructions. A bridge tells us a lot about engineering, etc. So everything to do about heritage is a way of encoding knowledge. And as long as we want to keep that knowledge, then we should keep that heritage. And of course, if the knowledge becomes obsolete, we don't need it anymore, or if knowledge becomes wrong, then we can, in fact, get rid of it. And there are some things about culture that we can understand are wrong. For example, the Nazis. We don't need to keep their culture. We know it's wrong. So we can discard that. It's incorrect knowledge. It's fake, false knowledge. So therefore, we don't need to keep that. But every kind of knowledge that is part of the greater knowledge of authenticity, of accuracy, we need to keep. Otherwise, we have to reinvent it. We have to discover it again. What if we had to discover how to do math again? Or what if we had to discover how to write again or talk again, language? Or what if we, if you don't, that's what if you push it to the farthest extreme, we'd all forget how to speak, because that's a kind of cultural knowledge. We'd forget our languages. We'd forget, and we'd become memoryless, in fact. So and now the corollary to this goes back to the whole issue that cultural heritage is everywhere, and therefore, and the knowledge is of relevance to everyone, and therefore everybody has to be involved in the action to preserve it. So again, it's very analogous to environmental things. Everybody needs air, and everybody needs to breathe that air, and everybody needs to keep the air clean to breathe, or water, or whatever. And it is the same kind of thing. One often says that culture is like a river, that the source is somewhere up there. It flows past you to join all the other rivers into the sea. And at the point where the river flows past you, it's yours to use. But it's not yours to misuse, because the water keeps flowing for others to use. So that kind of analogy, I think, is very very analogous to what is culture and cultural heritage and cultural resources, what they're all about too. And so this is what I've always done in all the projects I've done for UNESCO, all the things I have done.
You mentioned one of the projects on craft revival.
Yeah.
How does that ties up with this idea of bringing people into sharing their
knowledge? UNESCO or the traditional way of looking at crafts is to say, oh, look at these beautiful crafts. Oh dear, they are disappearing. Let's put some in the museum. And then when people say, let's try to revive craft, what they try to do is they try to find a master craftsman and give this person a prize. Okay. Now, this isn't going to help anything at all. This is just this is the collector's mentality. It's the person who wants to have the gold cup that the Roman made and put it on the shelf in his living room. What one has to do is one has to look at the skill, not the end product, but the skill that the craftsperson has, and how those skills can be used, and how those skills can be developed in producing new artifacts and new things. And so this is what I did with the crafts project. I said, okay, let's not have an award for crafts. Let's have a seal of excellence. Let's go out and say, okay, let's use the UNESCO name. We'll say, we're going to give you a seal of excellence if your craft is very good. This seal of excellence will help you sell your craft. So that will help you make your business, because one of the problems craftsmen don't have a business. So okay, we'll help you sell your business, and you get the seal of excellence. But this seal of excellence is not a prize. You're not competing with anybody else. You're competing with a benchmark of excellence, and we're going to keep raising that benchmark. So the problem of crafts going downhill, we're going to make them go uphill. And we keep raising that benchmark. So every year, the benchmark for the seal of excellence goes up and up and up and up and up. So we counterbalance this issue of going down and down and down. But not only do you get this seal, you only get the seal if you agree to share your expertise by teaching how to be more excellent to those craftspeople who didn't get the seal.